Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Patrick Gonzalez. I am from the Philippines, and I will be your host for this monthly IDP IELTS writing workshop with our returning IELTS expert, Jacqueline Fisher, and my co-hosts we have Miss Lilette from Singapore, and we also have Janice Ulayan from Indonesia. For first-time joiner, let us give you some quick information about IELTS expert. Jacqueline Fisher has been an IELTS teacher and trainer for more than a decade. Armed with an in-depth understanding of IELTS, she has helped hundreds of people from across Asia to prepare well for it. Today, Jacqueline will be walking you through IELTS writing for academic and general training. So keep your ears and eyes open for some amazing tips. Without further ado, let us pass over to Jacqueline. Welcome back, Jacqueline.
Thanks so much, Patrick. Nice to see you as well. Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's very nice to be with you this evening. So I'm usually in Asia with you. I live in Singapore most of the time, but actually right now I am in Australia, though not in Sydney. So that's why I put that background there. So yeah, I'm coming to you from down under, and that's why I'm all rugged up. We've had very cold weather here in Australia. So yeah, I'm curious to find out where you're joining us from this evening. Could be, I know, from anywhere in Southeast Asia, and sometimes we have people joining us from all over the place. So I'd love to see if you want to put in the chat box. So we'll be using the chat box to communicate. So you can, I'll be asking you some questions and you can ask me questions. And then of course, at the end of the webinar, there'll be a separate time for you to ask questions, and we'll have some questions live as well. So please let me know in the chat where you're joining us from this evening or this afternoon. I'm not sure what time it is where you are, but I'd love to see. Yeah. And
Miss Lilette, excuse me, I think the chat has been disabled from the participants.
Oh, give me a
I
second.
was wondering why.
Sorry.
I was like, nobody wants to tell me where they're from.
Okay. All right.
No worries. That's okay. I'll just keep going for now.
Anyways, let's try.
So this evening we're going to talk about the writing test. Hey, here we go. Here comes the chat. People from Philippines, Indonesia. Great. Lovely to have you here. Singapore. Yay, Singapore. Yeah, I've heard it's been quite wet in Singapore. Malaysia, Boleh. Very good. Indonesia. Great. Okay, lovely to have you with us, everyone. So yeah, so please feel free to ask your questions in the chat. If you use the Q&A, you can use that, and my wonderful colleagues will answer the questions there. And then, of course, we'll have live questions at the end. Oh, everyone's telling me where they're from. Indonesia. Oh, someone from Nigeria. Now, that's a long way away. Welcome. So this evening, we're going to look at the writing test. So, that's the test that most people worry about. Yeah, so we'll spend this pretty much 2 hours discussing the writing test. Of course, we could spend a lot more time. And please, this is your webinar, so please feel free to ask me any of your questions. But I just want to get to know a little bit more about you first. Oh, someone from Cambodia, how lovely. Yeah, so there's a poll up. Please, could you answer the questions in the poll, just so I understand a bit more about you, whether you've taken the test before, and the minimum score. Of course, we all want the highest, but what's the minimum band you need, and whether you're doing academic or general. So I'll just let that run. Yeah, and so Laos, how wonderful. I love Laos. I went to Laos for my honeymoon. So I went to Vientiane. It's a wonderful city. Yeah, and Vietnam, how nice to have you all here with us. That's great. So yeah, so writing is often the test that most people are worried about. So we're really going to focus on that, and hopefully I'll give you lots of tips about tackling that test. So let's see. We'll let the poll just run a little bit more. And we'll cover both academic and general. Yeah, so someone's saying that they got a band 8 overall, but the writing was the lowest, and that is generally the case. Yeah, because writing for most of us is a harder skill, but often whoever you're doing the test for, often they don't need you to get such a high score for writing. Often they might say you need a band 8, but a 7 for writing. Yeah, so often even the people who want you to do the test, they understand that writing is a bit more challenging. Yeah, so let me just end the poll and let's have a look. Have you taken the test before? So most of you have not, but some of you have. So if you have specific questions, about why you didn't, what went wrong, please feel free to ask in the chat, or maybe at the end when we have the live questions. Then also the minimums. Okay, so mostly it's 6s and 7s. And of course we have some people need a very high score. Okay, now it's not impossible, of course, to get a very high score, but you just have to do everything very well, basically. And then more people doing academic. Now, don't worry if you're doing general, we're going to cover both. We're going to look at both tests. So so you will, we'll talk about how both of the tests work. And there are many things that are similar in the academic and general test. All right, so you tell me what you know about writing. How long is the test and how many things do you have to do? Let me know. So it's 1 hour, that's right, and there are 2 tasks. Yep, so that's what we're going to talk about this evening. Yes, so if you're doing academic, so your task 1 is that you have to describe something using words. So we often say it's visuals into words. Yeah, and then your task 2 is an essay. And what about general? So general, your task 1 is quite a bit easier actually. It's a letter. So with this letter, with the general test, they're trying to make sure you can cope in an English-speaking country. So that's why they want you to be able to write a letter. And then your task 2 is an essay. Yeah, so task 2 is often challenging for people if we haven't written an essay for a long time. But the good thing to remember is it's not a long essay. And a lot of the things can be fixed quite easily. A lot of people go wrong in the essay because they don't understand what they need to do. So hopefully we'll cover this tonight. So yes, I want to find out which test are you planning to do, computer or paper? So some countries offer both and some countries just offer one. But can you let me know in the chat? If you don't know yet, also fine. I'm just curious. So it seems like quite a lot of computers. I see a few papers. Okay, so if it's the same test, the content is completely the same. It's just that the method by which you do it. So if you're doing computer test, you type it all on the keyboard, and you have to do listening, reading and writing all on the computer. Yeah, and if you're doing paper-based, it's all like old school style with pencil and writing longhand. Yeah, you can't mix and match, unfortunately. And so the real difference between computer and paper is that computer, you get your results faster, 3 to 5 days. And often you can do it more often. Yeah, and I mean, some countries aren't really offering paper-based, and some don't have so much computer. So it really depends where you are as well. You need to check with your IDP center. So there's a question here. IELTS essay are very short and concise, different from higher education. That is a very good point. Yes, and we're going to talk about that. How do you stay on the topic? How do you make sure that you answer the question? So we will definitely look at that this evening. You're going to do the paper-based, I see. Yes, so people ask me, which one's easier, which one's better? And really, it just depends on you. If you're very comfortable typing and you're comfortable using a computer and a mouse and all the keys and, computer functions, then, computer is good. But remember, you have to do the reading on the computer too. You have to read on the screen, and the listening. You have to type the answers. So if you're not good on a computer, and if the paper-based is available, then maybe paper-based is better for you. But we have to write longhand. Many of us are not good at doing that anymore. So if people ask me which one I would do, and I would probably do the paper-based myself, but that's because I'm not so young and I'm more comfortable reading on paper, but that's just me. Okay, so yeah, so you kind of have to weigh up what your strengths are. Oh, I see. So someone's asking for the chat box to be made public. I'm not sure. Let me see if the moderators want to do that. Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, thanks for that question though. All right, so that's a bit about computer or paper. Yeah, so let's think with the writing. Could you please give us recommendation about applications? Okay, so I'll talk about resources towards the end. We will touch on that. Yep. All right, so let's think about when you do your writing, the examiners are only looking at 4 things. They look at 4 areas. So actually how messy or neat it is, that's not one of the 4. What are the 4 things that the examiners look at? Does anyone know? You want to put in the chat? They consider 4 areas and they mark them equally. Does anyone know what these 4 are? Your grammar, yes, the grammar is one. Your lexis, so what that means is your vocabulary, the words that you use. Your coherence, so your structure, yes, and whether it flows. You're right. What's the last one? Someone said, Crystal said task response. Yes, so let's talk about these. It's really important that you know what these 4 are, because this is what they're looking at. So there's a point here that people have trouble with their spelling, and unfortunately spelling matters. We'll talk about that in just a moment. So first one that the examiner looks at is this task achievement or task response. So task 1 is task achievement, task 2, task response. Did you answer the question? Did you stay on the topic? Did you give a good answer with good reasons and examples? That's the first thing. And it's amazing how many people go wrong here because they panic, they don't read the question. Yeah, so we're going to really think about this one because this is an easy one to get a good mark with. Just have to answer the question well. Cohesion and coherence. So this is about your paragraphing, first of all. It's about structure. So you must use paragraphs. That's my first big tip. Yeah, so just make sure you have nice separate paragraphs. Each paragraph, it's clear what it's about. Yeah, if you write one chunk of writing, you will lose marks. So paragraphs are important. And then we want it to flow. So what does that mean? So linking words so that the writing flows nicely. So that's the second one. Third thing is your lexical resource. So this is the vocabulary. Yeah, so trying to use more unusual words, not the same sort of simple words, but words that are a bit more impressive, but they also have to be correct and natural. For us band 7, which a lot of you need, the examiners are looking for words that are correct and flexible and natural. Yeah, and then if you want higher, like a band 8, you need to use like more impressive and sophisticated vocabulary. But also under vocab comes your spelling. Yeah, so a lot of us are bad at spelling now. Someone was pointing that out because of autocorrect. So there's no autocorrect even on the computer delivered. So we have to work at our spelling. Yeah. And then the last one is, as people mentioned, your grammar. Yeah, so there's 2 parts to this. So being accurate. Yeah, so if you want a 7, it's probably 70 to 75% correct. If it's band 8, then 80 to 85% correct. But it's not just your accuracy, it's also this range. So we need to use more complex sentences. So if I say to you, I like Melbourne, that's where I am right now. I like Melbourne, it is rather chilly. So there's 2 separate sentences which are okay, but not very impressive in terms of the grammar. If I can combine them, so although I love Melbourne, it does tend to be chilly. Oh, that one sentence is more impressive. Okay, so we want to have more complex sentences. How? Things like although, however, whereas, while, if. Yeah, all of those make your writing more complex. So you want to use those kinds of sentences. Yes, and so why am I going on about this? Oh, are you here? Is everyone else hearing some static? You know why? I knock sound from the mic. Is that better if I just hold it like that?
I think, Miss Jackie, I am also hearing from my side. We're actually figuring out.
Is it just me? Okay, maybe you know what it is. Give me a second. Let me try something. Hold on. Is that better? Is that better? Hello. You can still hear it. Oh, I don't know what it is then.
I think it's
I'm
better.
not sure. Yeah, because I had my heater on. It's very cold here.
Yeah, I think it's better now.
It's the sound of my mic on my scarf. Do you want me to take? Oh dear, now I'll have to strip off. Goodness me. I think it might have been the heater. Yeah. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you for pointing that out. Appreciate it. All right. So I'll just hold my mic like this too. Yeah. So we're talking about how you are marked. Yeah. So these 4 things, we've got to keep thinking of this because this is what the examiner's looking at when you do your writing. And they mark each of these out of 9. So to get your 7, you need 7 for answering the question and having good reasons and examples. 7 for your structure, 7 for your vocab, 7 for your grammar. Then you'll get your overall 7. Okay, so I'm going to keep referring to these all the way through because that's what the examiner wants you to do. I also want to point out that under grammar, we also have your punctuation. So you remember your full stops, your capital letters, your commas, that's all important, that matters. Yep, okay, good. So we're going to keep thinking about these 4 things. Now, first of all, we'll talk about task 1. Oh, is it better now? I hope so. Anyway.
It's better now.
Yeah, okay, good. Sorry, that was my fault because I had the heater on to try to keep me a bit warm. So, yeah, so task 1, we're going to talk about general task 1 first. So if you are doing academic, go grab a drink and have a little chillax for about 10 to 15 minutes and then please come back. Yeah, but general people, we're going to talk about your task 1 first. All right, so if you're doing general, can you remind me, what are you writing for your task 1? What are you writing? A letter, yes. And I know that's a bit unusual. We don't really write letters so much anymore, but that's what you have to do. And how long should it be, minimum, and how many minutes? Yeah, so you should spend a maximum of 20 minutes and 150 words minimum. You can write more. Yeah. All right. So this is what it generally looks like when you get your topic for your letter. So it's always laid out with this format. So I'll just read it through and then we'll look at it. So yeah, you have 20 minutes, 150 words, and it always tells you how to begin. And that's important, dear sir or madam. So then we've got, there have been some problems with public transport in your area recently. This is the description, what your letter is going to be about. Write a letter to the manager of the public transport company. So this is your task. And then in your letter, you have these bullets. It tells you what to do. These are the subtasks. Now, how many bullets are there? How many bullets? There are always 3, okay? But we have to look at them carefully. Describe the problems. See this S? It's important. So you can't just talk about one problem. Got to be more than one problem. Explain how the problems are affecting the public. Suggest the changes that could be made. Okay, so they're your 3 jobs in the letter. So you have to use your imagination a little bit, but it's very important that it sounds real. Don't make the letter sound sort of like ridiculous or like, you know, like some like horror movie story or something. You've got to imagine that you're really going to send this letter in Canada or Australia or wherever, and you're writing it so it sounds really realistic. But you have to think of your own ideas. You have to think of the problems. Yeah, okay, so in your letter, you have 3 jobs. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to talk about the structure just in a moment, Widya, but that's a very good, you're on the right track for sure. All right, so in the letter, you have 3 main jobs. So first job is to work out your tone. So you can get the tone from here, how you start and who you're writing to, the manager of the public transport company. So do you know this person? No, right? So what's our tone going to be for this letter? What should it be? More formal, that's right. Okay, so that's important. You get the tone from how you start and who you're writing to. Next, we look at this part, the description, and we work out why we're writing the letter. We call this the purpose, the overall purpose. There have been some problems with public transport. Why are we writing? Overall. And usually we can state our purpose with to. So to point out problems with public transport, something like that. Okay, so that's our second job, the purpose. Now our third job is with these bullets. Make sure we understand the bullets. So problems affecting the public, changes could be made. Yeah, so always do those three jobs before you write. Look at the tone. So work out the purpose. Make sure you read the bullet points carefully and have the correct tone. Okay, so let's look at a model. So remember they said, dear sir or madam. So we just copy that. We just start the way they told us, dear sir or madam. Is it okay to be here to just learn about the test without taking it? Yeah, of course. Of course, you can. That's a great idea before you decide to take it. It's good to have prior knowledge. You're most welcome, Charlene. Oh, sorry, Charlene. Yeah. Okay, so dear sir or madam, I'm a resident of Newtown. I'm writing to draw your attention to recent problems with public transport in our suburb. So can you see the purpose? Where's the purpose? Usually we state it with a to. Right here. I am writing to draw your attention to recent problems. So we put the purpose right up in the first paragraph. And it's nice to start with some background about who you are, but no need to say your name because your name's at the end of the letter. So I am a resident of Newtown and I'm writing to draw your attention. So the first paragraph will be some background and the purpose. What was our first bullet point? Problems, right? So the next paragraph, we talk about the problems. And it's good to use linking words to introduce the problems. Can you see the two linking words? Can you see the two linking words? Briefly, that's the first one. So the problem is roadworks along Hill Road have led to long delays. And the next problem, where's the linking word? Furthermore. So the second problem, new weekend bus timetable has dramatically reduced frequency of buses on Saturday mornings. So you can see that these problems, they sound real, like these could be real problems. Yeah, so that's good. Now, the next bullet point was the effect on the public. Can you see this topic sentence? It introduces what the paragraph's about. So this is the next paragraph. The effect of these actions becomes very obvious on peak hours, during peak hours on weekdays and shopping hours on Saturday. High level of public concern. Public transport users in Hill Road find it takes 20 minutes to travel the length of the road. Again, so there's another effect. We use a linking word as well. Shoppers travel by bus found it not worth the trouble, leading to drastic downturn in retail trade. Okay, so that's the effect on the public. Now, remember one of the things the examiner's looking at is your vocab. Can you spot some nice vocab? In this paragraph, there is some nice vocab being used. Can you spot any? There's one in the second last line. Peak hour, yeah, that's nice. Further down in the second last line, drastic downturn. That's very nice, very more unusual vocabulary, but it sounds correct. Yeah, so if you can try to put in these more unusual phrases, it's very good. So someone's asking about how to build up your vocabulary. It's not an instant thing, building up your vocab, but a lot of it comes from reading. And you can go online and go to the App Store and look for IELTS vocabulary building apps, those kinds of things. Yeah, and later on, I'll show you some of the resources from IELTS Essentials. IELTS Essentials works with IDP. But yeah, so reading really is the best way to build your vocab. But there are now games and apps that can help you as well. Okay, so we've covered 2 bullets. Now the third bullet was the suggestions. May I suggest that buses be rerouted until roadworks on Hill Road are complete? That's one suggestion, because remember suggestions. Can you see the linking word to introduce the next suggestion? Also recommend, a return to the weekend timetable. Yeah, and then the last paragraph is we're pointing to the next step. I look forward to hearing from you regarding my suggestions. Then you'll sign off. So you started dear sir or madam. So the tone should be the same. So yours faithfully. So you wouldn't sign off see ya or anything like that, would you? And then don't forget your name because it's a letter. That's basically how you do it. Does the premise of the letter always have to be in Canada? No, you can set the letter in any country. It doesn't matter. I just said Canada for the sake of it. The letter can be anywhere. Yep. But you have to remember it's international English. So you don't want to make it, if you're in Asia, you don't want to make it sound too Asian. Yeah. It needs to be more international. What about paraphrase? Yeah, so it is really good to try not to copy the topic, the words from the topic. If you can change them, so, draw attention to, like, don't try not to copy the words in the topic too much. Yeah, that is a very good idea. Okay, so that's really how you do the letter. Usually has 5 paragraphs. Now, if you forget one of the bullet points, like, you just forgot about the suggestions, that is a bad thing because you'll end up getting 4 for your task achievement. So you really want to cover each bullet point properly. Yeah, and then your tone is important to keep it the same. So this one's more formal. So the language is more formal. And then if your tone is really variable and not consistent, you'll get a band 5. Yeah, so be careful with your tone. Yeah, so just to recap, we always look for the purpose, which is up the top of the topic. Then we think about the tone, make sure we cover all the bullets, and usually there are 5 paragraphs. So let's practice identifying the purpose. This is not always easy. So this is the first thing at the top. We have to work out why we're writing the letter. So this is an easy one to start. If you want your friend to come to your partner's surprise birthday party, what's our purpose there? Why are we writing? You can usually say it with 2. Why are we writing to the person? Yeah, but what's the purpose? Yeah, to invite someone. Exactly, to invite someone to a party. Great. And so what about this one? You stayed at a hotel and the service was unsatisfactory. What's our purpose there? To complain, yeah, maybe, but be careful when you complain in a letter. It has to sound real, so don't go over the top. Yeah, it still has to sound real and polite. So to complain or express dissatisfaction. Yep, good. The other thing to always think about is your tone. So this was written, the one about inviting to the birthday party. What do you think about this tone? Dear Anne, I request the pleasure of your attendance at the birthday party that I will host for my longtime partner. I would very much appreciate it if you could keep this invitation a secret, as it will be a surprise party. What do you think? Yeah, Janice says too formal. I tend to agree because this would be more like a very formal event. Yeah, but this is to a friend. So you wouldn't really write like this. And if you get an informal letter, it is a bit more challenging because we don't write letters to friends, really, do we? We just send a WhatsApp. But in the informal letter, the secret is to write like you're talking, but use full sentences. Yeah, so here's an example. Dear Anne, I hope all is well. I'm not sure if you remember, but Danny's big birthday is around the corner. Yes, he's going to hit the big 40. He says he doesn't want a party, but that's too bad because I'm hoping you'll be part of a super secret surprise bash I'm organizing for him. Can you see that this sounds like someone talking? Notice this, I'm, he's, I'm. This is called contractions. And we can put them in an informal letter because it makes it, less, more casual, more like talking. Okay, good. Now, what about this one for the hotel? I'm very sorry about this, but I really do have to complain about the service I received at your hotel last week. How do you feel about that tone? Formal, yeah, but what would you? Casual, too casual. I think it's okay in that way, but it's more that it's kind of too apologetic. Why are you apologizing? They gave you bad service. So how about this? I am writing to express my disappointment about the service I received during my stay at your hotel last week. Can you feel that difference? This is a bit more formal, yes, a bit more detached, cool. The tone is really important in the letter. Polite, but disappointed, yeah. So sometimes you do get this informal letter. Okay, so let's go through our steps as we did before. You're going on a holiday, would like to ask a friend to look after your house, write a letter to your friend. In your letter, explain the situation, tell your friend what needs to be done while you're away, arrange to meet your friend. So dear ... So what do we do here? You just make up a name, okay? But it's your friend, so, you wouldn't put dear Miss Smith, right? Would you? You're just dear Jane or whatever. Okay, now write a letter to your friend. So our tone, so Agung, don't change the words. So if it's dear, my beloved friend, that's very nice, but we don't really say that. Okay, the secret is to make it natural remember your purpose. You're wanting to do this test to go to another country, usually for general. They wouldn't really write like that to a friend. That just sounds a bit over the top. I'm sorry to say that. It's very nice, but it doesn't sound quite natural. Just put the name. Yeah, don't change it. So dear Jane would be fine. Okay, so our tone is going to be what? Yeah, and someone's put, hey buddy, don't change it. Just leave it like this. Dear Jane, dear Fred. Yeah, don't change it. The secret with IELTS to get a good score is just follow the instructions. Don't change things. Yeah, so this one's informal. Yeah, so dear Professor, no, because this is your friend. Unless your friend's name is Professor. But I don't think that would work for you in this one. Yeah, the tone has to be informal. That's right. Okay, so we've got the tone is informal. Now, what's our purpose? You're going on holiday, would like to ask a friend to look after your house. Why are we writing? To do what? To request something. Yeah, to make a request, to ask for a favor. Yeah, so that's our purpose. So the purpose needs to be at the top. Yep, good. So let's have a look at the model. I think it'll make more sense. And you're right. If you happen to get an informal one, it is a little bit more challenging because we wouldn't really write a letter. So dear Jane, that's the opening. Cheers. So my closing is also informal. If you don't like cheers, because I know it's quite Australian, you could have something like, bye for now, see you soon. Lots of love. All of those are fine. Yeah. Lovingly yours. That's also something that you would write to a lover, not to a friend. So be a bit careful with your tone. I wouldn't write that to my friend unless I was deeply in love with them and wanted to have a romance with them. Yeah, so this is why it's good to look at model ones, so you see the correct tone. All right, so now notice that remember the purpose has to be up the front. See you soon is perfect. Yep. Bye for now is perfect. Yes. Punctuation. Okay. So modern writing, we don't need a comma here, but if you put a comma there, it's also fine. I'm just doing modern block style. Yeah. But if you want the comma, also okay. All right. So remember you have to get the purpose up at the front, but if you write, dear Jane, I am writing to ask you for a favor. Oh, it sounds really stiff. And your friend will be like, whoa, man, it doesn't sound natural. Yeah, so I think it's nice if you have an informal letter to put a greeting first. Dear Jane, how is everything? I hope you're having a great week. Then you need some background before you build up to the purpose, particularly for the informal letter. As you know, I'm heading off to England next Monday for 3 glorious weeks. I'm wondering if you might be free to do me a huge favor. So now I'm getting to the purpose. I'd be super grateful if you could look after the house. I really need to get away because I haven't had a break for almost a year. Yeah, there isn't really much to do, so don't worry. Can you see that I'm using exclamation marks and contractions in an informal letter? Yeah, you can't shorten the word as in, so someone's saying, can you give short forms of the word? you shouldn't put things like LOL, like that kind of thing, like texting language. But in the informal letter to a friend, it's fine to do this, contractions, because it sounds like speaking. Yeah, there really isn't much. It'd be fantastic if you could feed my cat Moggy. He can get in and out of the house all on his own. So you see, I have to add my own details to get up to 150 words. And notice I'm trying to put in some interesting vocab. Fantastic. Like, while you're at the house, it'd be wonderful if you could check my plants and give them a drink if they're looking droopy or parched. So I'm trying to put in some interesting vocab, but it sounds natural. Remember the grammar, a bit more complex. While you're at the house, it would be wonderful. That's a more complex sentence. Yeah, would you be free to meet on Wednesday so I can give you the keys? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so it sounds like someone's talking. And then the last paragraph, we point to the future. Could you give me a call to let me know if this won't be too much of a hassle? It'll be great to see you. Phrasal verbs are fine in IELTS. Yep, you can totally use phrasal verbs, particularly in informal writing, but also formal, it's fine. Indentation. So as long as it's clear what your separate paragraphs are, you can indent or just leave a blank line. Either one is fine. So just to give some overall tips, do what we did. Analyze the task. Look for the tone, the purpose, the bullets. Check if there's plural bullets like problems. Yeah, the purpose should be in the first paragraph. So you have some background and then the purpose. You need usually 5 paragraphs in the letter. The last paragraph, we look to the future. And then make sure you get the tone right. Okay, so really see who you're writing to and how to start. That will give you your tone. Try not to copy the words in the instructions. Use synonyms. Yeah, just start as they tell you. Don't change it to hi or howdy or anything. Just follow the instructions. You don't need an address, you just start. And make sure that ends, the opening and the closing, match in the tone. Okay, so let's just see if you were listening to that. Let's have a little poll, a little quiz to see what you remember from that, if that's okay. Can we have the quiz? Thanks. Okay, so which 3 things should you think about for the general writing task 1? If you have an informal letter, can you use texting language? It's okay if it doesn't sound realistic as long as you have a lot of impressive vocab. And in an informal letter, you can use contractions. And formal letter, you should use really formal phrases. So some of these are trick questions. Okay, I'll just let it run a little bit longer. Can you use formal words? Yeah, so I'll answer that in just a moment once we finish the poll. I'll just let it run a few more seconds. Yeah, so someone's asking if this is academic or general. We've just talked about general task 1. Now we'll talk about writing task 1. Then we'll talk about task 2 together, combined, because although the topics are different, the method is the same. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to end this poll. Let's have a look. Yes, so what are the 3 things? Purpose, tone, and the 3 bullets. Yes. Now, British spelling, that's a trick. You can use British or American. Doesn't matter, yeah, because it's international English. Long sentences, of course, it's good to use complex sentences, but it's more important that they're correct and natural. Yeah. Now, using texting language is a no, okay? You can use contractions like don't, I'm, but like things like lol or like bay, or I don't know, I don't really use texting language, but all those ASAP or something like that, don't use that because they're not spelled out words. Yeah. It's okay if it doesn't sound realistic as long as you have a lot of impressive vocab. That's false. It should sound real, like you're really going to send this letter when you go to New Zealand or, I don't know, UK or wherever. Yeah. Yeah, so it is okay. In an informal letter, you can use contractions, but not in a formal letter. In a formal letter, don't use really old-fashioned formal phrases. Don't do that. make it sound natural and real, like you'd really send that letter in that country. Yeah, good. Okay, great. So general people, please go have a little drink and a chill and come back in about 15 minutes. Yeah, just around about on a half hour, we'll move on to task 2. All right. Can you combine British and American? If you want to, you can. I think it's a bit weird. You won't lose marks, but I think it's a bit strange. But if you want to, it's okay. Yep. All right. So academic people, please tell me what you're doing for your task 1. Report, yeah. How many words is it? And how long should you spend? Just a graph? Someone's writing a graph. Yep. 250. No. It's only 150. Yeah. And you should spend 20 minutes. So the very important thing here for academic is don't get stuck on this task 1. Because honestly, task 1 academic is a bit challenging. It takes time to learn how to do it. And you need to learn to do it fast because you don't want to get stuck on this. It's not as important as task 2. You want to try to do it properly, give the examiner what they want and move on. That's your aim. Okay, so what do you have to do? I always say task 1 is visuals into words. Yeah, so it's taking something visual, a graph, a chart, a table, a diagram, and then describing it using words. And your aim is that the examiner can read what you wrote and then draw the diagram. That's your job. Okay, so it's visuals into words. All right, so let's see what we're talking about. So this is what it looks like. So sometimes you get 2 things to describe and sometimes it's only 1. If it's 2, don't panic, don't worry. It's still the same technique. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through a method that I hope we'll be able to do quickly once you get used to it. So of course, the first thing is to read what we're looking at. Charts show a number of Japanese tourists traveling abroad between 85 and 95 and Australia's share of the Japanese tourist market. Okay, number of tourists traveling abroad, how many going to Australia? So it will always tell you what it's about. And this part here is always the same. Summarize by selecting and reporting the main features. So you have to pull out the main things and summarize, and you have to compare. This is always your job, okay? No matter what you're given, always the same. Okay, so once you've read what it's about, I always ask myself questions so I get clear. First question I always ask is this about the past or the future or the present? So what's this one about? Past, future, present? It's the past, yeah. So someone's asking if you can do the tasks like task 2 first and then task 1. Of course you can do that. It's up to you. You can do them in any order, but please manage your time. Be really careful with your time. Yeah, so it's set in the past. So this is going to affect the language that we use. So always check. Sometimes it's future, you know. Okay, so now we need to spend just a minute working out the main trends so we can describe them. So Japanese tourists traveling abroad. When it's a graph, I always look at the vertical. Millions. So this is not 246, it's 2 million. So be careful. And here we've got years. Yeah, so I again ask myself some questions. Okay, so people are asking about the handout and what I'm presenting. They don't entirely match. That you're right. The handout is really for you to look at later. If you want to take screenshots of this, feel free. Okay, so my first question is when I get a graph, is what is the main trend? Overall, is it going up or is it going down? Yeah, it's overall going up. You're right. Now, when it's a graph, we need to look at certain points. We need to look at the start. So at the start, how many million Japanese tourists going abroad? Yeah, about 5 million. So a good word to use is approximately, then you're safe. Approximately 5 million. Then we need to always look at the end. How many at the end? Approximately 16, maybe just under 16 million, correct. Now, where is the peak? Which year is the highest point? We always have to look for the peak. So start, end, and peak. Yeah, 95. Now we have to see if there are any other interesting changes that we want to highlight. So when it just goes up like this, we don't need to mention every year. You should not, because it's boring. So only mention when it changes. Ooh, so here, right? This year is important. We will mention this. You might want to mention this. It's kind of like a plateau, but this is more important because it fell back. Yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about for this one. Now, what about this graph? Australia's share. Now, how many are going to Australia? Now, look at the vertical. Now, careful, it's not millions, it's percent. So be careful. And here's the year. So overall, again, up, overall up, or overall down? Up or down? Up again. Yeah, some changes, but overall up. Now, what's the percent of what percent? Sorry, what percent were going to Australia in 85? Just 2, very low. And what about at the end? So we look at the start and the end. 96, yeah, maybe just around 6%. Now, which year is the peak? Which is the highest point? Yeah, now careful, it's not 89. 89 is here. It's here, 94. Yeah, so be careful. So here the peak is not at the end, right? So we want to highlight the peak. Always start, end, and peak. Now, which other year is interesting? I think you pointed it out, this year. Yeah, so they're all the things we're going to want to talk about. You should always spend, not as long as we spent just now, but you'll train yourself to quickly pick out the main features like that. But now we need to write because we only have 20 minutes. So again, we have 3 rules of writing for academic. You need an introduction. You need to pull out the main features and describe with lots of data. And then you need an overview. Yeah, so let's talk about all these elements. So introduction, the quickest way, remember you don't have much time, is to just paraphrase. So just write this, but change, don't copy it because copying is not your words, change the words. So the chart and graph, show, compare the number of Japanese tourists, the number of Japanese who spent their holidays overseas. You're from, to, so here's between and. So you just literally paraphrase the topic for your introduction. Then we need the overview. So the overview is very important. You must have it. So let me just read it to you. Overall, despite the relatively small proportion of Japanese tourists coming to Australia, the Japanese tourist market corresponded closely with the growth in Japanese tourism overseas generally, with a trebling of both in the 10-year period. So can you see any actual data in this paragraph? Are there any figures? No, that's right. And that's on purpose because the overview has no numbers. It's just like, it's like you're looking at it from far away and describing the main trends. So here for both graphs. Yeah, and you must have this overview. And usually we start it with overall or in general. Yep. Can you bring in scrap paper? You can't bring in anything like that. No scrap paper, only water in a clear bottle. But you are given some rough paper to make notes. Yeah, so don't worry about that, and a pencil. Yeah, so next, so the second thing is the overview. And then the next thing we have to describe this and this, the main trends, with a lot of numbers so the examiner could draw it. So let's go through the first one. In 1985, only about 5 million, like we said, Japanese traveled abroad, after which the numbers increased steadily. By 1990, the figure had almost doubled to 11 million. Apart from a slight drop the following year to approximately 10 million, the upward trend continued until the end of the period when numbers reached over 15 million. Okay, so you can see that we've mentioned all the important points, so the examiner could draw it. Now, a couple of things I want to point out. Remember, vocab is important. So here we've got increased, but we're describing how it's increasing. It makes it better. So you could say increased, but that's a bit boring. So increase steadily. Yeah. And here, a slight drop. So we could say it dropped, but a slight drop is more interesting with the vocab. Now, remember the third job we have is always to compare. Can you spot any comparing language in this paragraph? There are at least 2 examples. There's one in the first line. Just in this paragraph, the top paragraph. Can you spot? Apart from, yes, and after which, so before and after. You must have this comparing language. It's what you have to do in the task 1. So things like that, after which, apart from, whereas, similarly, all of those. So there's a question here, could you use idioms? We only really use idioms when we speak. We don't use idioms so much in the writing because writing is more formal. Why number in plural is in plural? I don't know which number you're referring to. Maybe can you give me an example? What do you mean? How do you compare overview if they don't correspond? So you just compare one within itself. That's the easiest way to do the comparing. Comparing across is very confusing and you'll get into trouble. So when you do comparing and you have 2 things, just compare within one and then compare within this one. You see, because it goes over time, so you can compare before and after. Right, so let's look at the other one. So while Australia was the destination for under 2% of Japanese tourists in 1985, this percentage had risen to over 6% by 1994. Here, the peak, right? The proportion grew consistently. There's that nice language, grew consistently, apart from a slight fall in 1990, 4.5 to 4. Someone was asking about brackets. Of course, you can use them. After reaching its 1994 peak, the percentage declined marginally to 6% in 1995. Okay, so we've described all the important points again. Can you spot the comparing language in this paragraph? There's while. Can you see another one? There's one more. After, yep, after which. Can you write percent or just the symbol? Yeah, you can use either one. No problem. You can use the word or the symbol. Can you compare Australia and Japan? What is the increase and decline of those? You just have to describe what you see. So this is the easiest way to do it. When you have 2 things, you describe this one and compare within this one, and then you describe this one and compare. If you try to compare across, it gets very messy. Trust me, and you only have 20 minutes. So do it the fastest way. All right, so let's just look at the whole thing. So remember the introduction, you just paraphrase, then the overview, overall, so no numbers. Then we describe the first graph with lots of numbers and comparing. And then the second one, lots of numbers and comparing. You do not need a conclusion unless you need more words. Then you can summarize everything. Yeah, you just finish like that. Okay, so that's really how you do your task 1 academic. Can you use parentheses? Yeah, I just showed you an example with the brackets. Yep. So sometimes you don't get a graph, you get this, a table. Don't worry, it's the same technique, okay? And all right, so let's read what we're dealing with. The table below shows percentage of students who attended different types of secondary school between 2000 and 2009. So what time are we dealing with? Past again, right? So this is the same, summarize, select and report main features and compare. Again, our job is the same. So when it's something like a table, we're looking for the ones that are the same. Again, we're looking for trends. We're looking for the trends that are the same and the trends that are different. So we have to analyze for a minute. Okay, we're not going to talk about maps today. I will briefly, you can ask me at the end about maps because maps don't come up that much, okay? So I'm not really going to talk about maps. Can you separate introduction and an overview so you have 4 paragraphs? Yes, you can. But some people don't say that you shouldn't have a 1-sentence paragraph, which is kind of true. So that's why nowadays I tend to combine the introduction and the overview together, because a 1-sentence paragraph is a bit strange. It is true. All right, so let's work out the trends here. So specialist schools, 12, 11, 10, up or down? Yeah, down, but just marginally, right? Just slightly. Grammar schools, what happened? 24, 19, 12. Also dropped. But notice how it went 24 to 12. So we could describe this as it went, you know, it dropped from 24% to 12% of students. But what's a more interesting way? Yeah, I saw someone put it halved. Yeah, so you need to say what it started at 24 and it halved. That's a more interesting way of describing the data. Volunteer schools, 52, 38. Oh my goodness, plummeted. Yeah, less than half. More than half. I mean, it dropped by more than half. Sorry, my maths is not very good. Now, community schools, what happened? 12, 32, 58. Wow, it leapt up, didn't it? Almost 5 times. Okay, so how will we have to work out how we're going to group our information. So it would be logical, right? We talk about these 3, the same trend, they all dropped. And then we'll talk about community schools separately in another paragraph. Yeah, you might want to separate specialist schools out because it just dropped a tiny bit, but probably you'd talk about these 3 together and this one. So we're always looking for how we group the information. So again, let's have a look at the model. So we paraphrase the topic. The table illustrates percentages students at different times at grammar school. So we just rewrite the topic in our own words. So here's the overview. In general, we can see that the specialist grammar and voluntary control schools experience declines, whereas comparing word, a nice comparing word, community school became largest provider. Any numbers here in the overview? No. Then we just describe. So to begin, proportion in voluntary control schools fell. So voluntary controlled, yep, from just over half. So that's an interesting way. Instead of saying 52%, just over half to only 20%. Similarly, comparing word, relative number of children in grammar schools, which was just under a quarter, dropped by half. Yeah, so we know what it started with and what it went to. As for the specialist schools, relatively small percentage of pupils attending this type of school, which was 12%, also fell, but not significantly. However, while other 3 types declined, opposite was true of community schools. Only a small minority were educated in 2000, figure increased to well over half. Yeah, so they're using more interesting ways of describing the numbers as well. Yeah, so that's how you do it, the task 1 academic. Now, last one we're going to look at just quickly. Sometimes you get this. Don't panic if you get this. This is a process, and it's actually, if you ask me, it's easier. Why? You just describe everything that you see. You need to mention everything here, but it's in a sequence. So you just describe the order. Yeah, so same technique. Diagram shows process by which bricks are manufactured. So that's going to be our introduction. We rewrite the topic. And then we need to spend some time understanding what's going on. Yeah, we also need to work out how to do the overview. People are like, how do I do the overview? It's quite easy. You just count how many steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And of course, you can use approximately 7 steps. And you can group the steps. So like getting the raw materials, heating and cooling, and packaging and delivery, something like that. Yeah, and you can just mention the start and the end. Yeah, so with the process, you can use the words on, it is good to use synonyms, but you can also use the words on the process diagram. The trick is to change the grammar. Yeah, so for example, with packaging, instead of saying the next step is packaging, you can say it is packaged. That's good. That's considered good. It is delivered. Yeah, so with the process, we don't use past. We usually use the present tense because we're just describing factual things. There's no time here. Okay, so let's have a quick look at, so paraphrasing is fine. Let's have a look at a model. Oh, sorry, let me go back. I forgot to mention something. Now, the thing is, though, you need to spend a minute understanding what's going on. Okay, so you have to kind of spend a bit of time because you need to really mention everything. So you've got a digger digging up the clay. The clay goes through this metal grid onto a roller. The sand and water are added. Then 2 options. The wire cutter can be used to make bricks, or there's a mold to make bricks. Then it goes in the drying oven, 24 to 48 hours. So of course we could use a synonym, what? 1 to 2 days. Yeah, and then into this kiln, so heating, moderate, high. So we need to mention everything. So let's have a look at the model. So can you see here the overview has been put at the end? This is also okay. I prefer it up the top, but you can put it down here is fine also, as long as you have it. So diagram outlines how bricks are manufactured from extraction of raw clay to the eventual delivery of finished bricks. Process involves clearly defined steps. First, the raw clay is extracted from a quarry by a large digger. It's then refined. So we just go step by step. Now be careful. A lot of people tend to use then a lot. So we want different ways of saying then. So the next step, subsequently, after this, because it's a sequence. And then the overview, overall, the brick making process comprises 7 steps. These steps involve different processes, namely refining and forming the raw clay, drying and firing. Yeah, so we just, again, general overview. Yeah, so really process, don't panic. Now map, I will talk about map at the end because we're kind of running out of time. But map is not that common, doesn't come up so much. All right, so just some tips for your task 1 academic. Yeah, make sure you have your 150 words. That overview is really important. Introduction and then overview, no numbers. Pull out the main features and support with lots of data, lots of numbers when you describe the data. Comparing, remember the comparing, whereas, after which, apart from, similarly, yeah, in comparison. Can you use 3 paragraphs? As long as it's clear what each paragraph is about, that's fine. 3 paragraphs, 4 paragraphs. So linking words. Yeah, so it should be clear what each paragraph is about. Now, checking for mistakes, we'll talk about that with the essay, but it is important because remember the examiner's looking at your spelling and your grammar. Yeah, so remember when you describe the data, you must have numbers. Don't just say it increased, it decreased. From what to what? The examiner should be able to draw it. Yeah, so sometimes you have pie charts. It's the same thing. Just pick out, when you have pie charts, it's usually 2 different years. So work out what changed. Did it increase? Did it decrease? Which ones got bigger? Which ones got smaller? We're always looking for patterns. We do not want to interpret the data. So never, like for the one about Australia, people coming to Australia, you never say why. Never, never, never. So never say, oh, more people are coming to Australia because they want to have barbecues. No, no, no. Just describe what you see. You don't need to describe every single thing, right? Unless it's the process. Pick out the main trends and you must have that overview. Okay, good. So can we have the poll, the review for task 1 academic? Yeah, I'll talk about maps later on. We need to really move on and talk about the essay. With the task 1 academic, we can talk about it forever. I'll address maps at the end, okay? Usually you don't need 5 or 6 paragraphs for task 1 because it's only 150 words. Don't get stuck on task 1. Task 1 is not as important as task 2. Okay, so really, usually 3 or 4 paragraphs are tons. You don't need a conclusion for task 1 unless you need more words. Then you can have a conclusion and just summarize everything again. Okay. All right. So let's see how you're going. Yeah. So we're going to move on and talk about the essay soon because this is more important. All right. So I might just end the poll just because of timing. So sorry if you didn't quite finish. Which should you not include? Interpretation, that's right. Never interpret. Never say why. Just describe what you see. Do you have to cover every piece of data on the chart or graph? Yeah, no. On a chart or graph, you just the main trends and you point out when it changes. But on a process, you need to cover everything. Do you need a conclusion? Yeah, you don't have to. Don't need one unless you need more words. Okay, good. Now, let's move on and talk about the essay with everybody, academic and general together. Now, tell me, how long is your essay and how many minutes should you spend? It's 250 minimum. Of course, you can write more, and 40 minutes. This is the most important part of the test, so please spend more time on it. It's worth 66%. You don't want to get stuck on your task 1, okay? Very important. All right, so the topics are different for academic and general. The academic topics are a bit more abstract, but the method is the same, okay? So we're just going to talk about it together. Let's review what the examiner's looking at. So here we've got task response, your reasons and your examples, your structure. So please, you must have paragraphs, you must have linkers, the vocab you use and your spelling, and then the grammar, complex sentences, correct, and punctuation. Okay, so when you get a task 2 essay, it's usually divided into these 2 parts, the topic and your instructions. Okay, so they always look like that. So let's look at an example. International tourism has brought enormous benefit to many places. At the same time, there's concern about its impact on local inhabitants and the environment. Do the disadvantages of international tourism outweigh the disadvantages? In the computer test, you can do task 2 first if you want to, but be very careful that you don't leave yourself no time for task 1. You've got to do both tasks. But of course, if you want to do task 2 first, you can. Okay, abstract. So abstract, what I mean by abstract is that the questions are more like they're not so practical. The topics are more like you have to use your not imagination, but you have to speculate, you have to think more about the future. They're not so based in everyday reality, not everyday reality, everyday life. Abstract means that you have to think more, you have to use more logical thinking and critical thinking, basically. Yeah. Okay. Do the advantages of international tourism outweigh the advantages? So here we've got the topic. It's international tourism. Okay, so it's brought benefit, but there are also problems. And your job, your instructions, do the disadvantages outweigh the advantages? Okay, so that's one topic. Let's look at another one. In many countries, very few young people follow the news. That's the topic. What do you think are the causes of this? What can you suggest to encourage more young people to follow the news? So these are your questions that you have to answer in the essay. So how many things do you have to do in this one? In this essay, how many things do you have to do? 2, yes. Yeah, so it's always very important to follow the questions or answer the questions or follow the instructions. Now, in every essay, this is your job. Reasons and examples. I'm going to keep saying this over and over. You have to give reasons and examples, always. Now let's have a look. Remember this one, we just looked at it. In many countries, very few young people follow the news. What do you think are the causes? What can you suggest to encourage more young people to follow the news? Now, this is like someone's answer. It is not true that people avoid reading newspapers or watching the news on television. In my country, most people do endeavor to find out about the news. Why do I believe this is so? Because I see newspapers everywhere. So there must be a demand for such publications. What is wrong with this? There's some problem with this. Marsha says it doesn't answer the question. Someone's saying you shouldn't use personal pronouns. That's not true. For IELTS essay, you can use I, we. I'm not really we. I. It's fine to use I. You don't have to. If you want to make it all impersonal, that's okay. But you can use I. It's not such a formal essay. Okay, it is formal in that we use proper sentences and more formal vocab, but you can use I. Yes. Did they hear this person is giving their opinion? Did they ask you to give your opinion up here? Did they say, what's your opinion? No. So when in IELTS, and I'll keep saying this over and over, the trick is to follow the instructions. Did it say, what is your opinion? No. So do not give your opinion. You will lose marks. They said, what are the causes and what are the suggestions? You're not supposed to argue with the topic here. Always follow the instructions. So be careful about that. Yeah. Now, I love this slide. You might want to take a screenshot. I took this from a video, which is actually on the IDP website. So you can watch that video. The interesting thing about the essay is the topics change, but the type of essay, the instructions or the questions are often the same. Yeah. And when we have this type of question, it actually helps us, it gives us our structure. Remember, structure is important under cohesion and coherence. Yeah, so let's have a look. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? So this is asking for your opinion. Sometimes you have this. And so here are the, here's a good structure. Your introduction, why you agree or why you disagree, what your position is, a reason, another reason, then considering the other side, and then conclusion. This is a nice, clear structure. Another type of essay, discuss both views and give your own opinion. That's a different type. So we'd have introduction, we'd talk about first view, second view, your opinion, conclusion. Yeah, so very nice, clear structure. So the instructions or the questions give you your structure. Yeah. Why is this so? Give reasons and solutions. So this is a bit like the one we just looked at with the news. So we have introduction, reason why it's so, another reason, solutions, conclusion. It's a nice, clear structure. It's not the only way you can do it, but it's a nice, clear structure. And that's really important for your IELTS essay. Here's the one about disadvantages of international tourism outweigh the advantages. Remember that we looked at that one? Introduction, and then you put your position. There are more advantages. Then you give the advantages, give the disadvantages, and conclusion. And there's another one. Why is it so? Effect on individual and society. Yeah. Introduction, why it's so, effect on individual, effect on society, conclusion. So having a really clear structure is very important. People lose a lot of marks because they don't focus on this. What is concession? Concession means that you consider the other side. So if you're arguing and you say, I agree, you give your reasons why you agree, it makes a good essay if you can at least consider the other side. Because of course, everything has two sides, doesn't it? Okay, so let's, for the last sentence in the first paragraph, may I use a sentence like, for the following paragraphs, I will explain why. You can do that if you want to. It's considered a bit, it's not very sophisticated. You don't need to do it like that. I'll show you another way. If you really want to write it like that, you can. It's not wrong. It's just a bit, it's not considered very high level, but it's okay. Yeah. All right. So remember this type, discuss both these views and give your own opinion. So always look at these instructions. This is going to give you your essay structure. Now let's look at the topic though. What are we talking about? What are the views? Some people think that wild animals should not be kept in zoos. Others believe that there are good reasons for having zoos. Okay, so view, how many views are there? 2, right? View 1 is always introduced with some. So some people think wild animals should not be in zoos. So zoos are bad. Others, so view 2 is always others. Others think there's good reasons for zoos. So maybe zoos are important. Yeah, so they're the 2 views. I always say it in my own words to myself so that I understand. Yeah, so view 1, wild animals, no zoos. View 2, yeah, maybe zoos are there, it can be important. So we have to discuss both of these and give our own opinion. So how many things do we do in this essay? How many things? Is it 2? There are 3. Give our own opinion. So we also have to give what we think. And maybe our opinion is a bit of both. Or maybe it's fully agreeing with one side. Okay, but in this type of essay, we have to do 3 things. It's a discussion and opinion essay. So let's think about the structure. So here's the topic. So in the introduction, I'll tell you what to put in the introduction soon, but you can also mention your opinion, but we won't give any reasons. So we'll talk about view 1. We'll give reasons and examples. Remember, every essay we have to give reasons and examples. We'll talk about view 2, reasons and examples. Then we'll give our opinion with our reasons and examples and conclusion. Okay, so here I'm showing you an essay that got a band 7 in answer to this question. So it's a good essay. So in IELTS, 7 means good for the writing. So there are many good things, but it's not very good. And you'll see why. It's not quite as sophisticated as a band 8. We'll look at a band 8 later. So, but what is good about this is the structure is very clear. The introduction, wild animals are kept in zoos. At present, zoos are attraction in many countries and need wild animals. I believe wild creatures should not be kept in zoos. So they've put their opinion here, but no reasons yet. There are many good reasons for having zoos. So they've talked about view 2 first, which is okay, which is fine. And this is the topic sentence. It tells us what the paragraph is about. There are many good reasons for having zoos. Most importantly, they attract tourists. Visitors get to see wild animals. And then there's an example. Remember, you have to give examples. Zoos care for these animals and give us a chance to see them. Yeah. However, many people feel wild animals should be free. So this is view 1. See the topic sentence? They should not be kept in cages in small areas. It's cruel. Okay. Also, they're unhappy. Yep. And then this is the person's opinion. Can you put my opinion after the introduction? I wouldn't do that because you need to discuss. Remember, it told you discuss both these views and give your own opinion. So it's more logical to give view 1, view 2, and then your opinion. Both views put forward valid points, but you can state your opinion up here, but don't give your reasons yet. Your introduction should not include reasons. Both views put forward valid points. However, I strongly believe zoos are no place for wild animals. If animals need to be cared for, they should be looked after in their natural habitat. Yeah, so this is that person's opinion with reasons. And then in conclusion. Yeah, so that summing up. So it's a very nice, clear structure for this essay, which is why it got a 7. Now, when it comes to cohesion and coherence, there are nice, clear paragraphs. It's obvious what each paragraph is about. And there are good linkers. So at present and them. Why did we put them? This comes under cohesion and coherence. What is them? Wild creatures should not be kept in zoos and there should be alternative ways to see them. What's them? The wild creatures. Yeah, that's right. So it's important to do this. We call it referencing. So you're not just repeating. Ideally, if you can use a lot more synonyms, you will get a higher score. That's right. We'll talk about vocab in a minute. So let's look at more of the linkers. So most importantly, so that's introducing a reason, unless, for example, however, also, both views put forward valid points, however, in conclusion, although, as far as I'm concerned. So these are all nice linking words to make it flow, like glue that sticks it together. So you need to do this in your essay. All right, so that's one type, that discuss both views and give your own opinion. Now let's look at a different type. So again, this is our topic. Some people say living in a house is much better than living in an apartment. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? So, so this is different, right? This is a different type of topic. Now they're asking for our opinion. So what is our topic? Okay, some people think house is better than apartment. To what extent? So if you see this word, it's important. It means how much. So do you mostly agree, strongly agree, partially agree, strongly disagree? Yeah. Micah, can you incorporate recommendations when discussing your opinion? Only if they ask you to. If they say, suggest, make some suggestions. Otherwise, no. Always just follow the instructions or you'll go off topic and you lose marks. Remember, it's only 250 words. It's not like a university essay. Okay, so you have to get your position. So I want to ask you, what do you all think? Some people say living in the house is much better than living in an apartment. What do you think? Do you mostly agree? Do you partially agree? Do you mostly disagree? Let me know. You agree? When it says extent, we have to say how much. Strongly, partially, mostly. Yeah, okay. So it seems like a lot of people mostly or strongly agree. Good. So that's what you're going to have to argue. You have to think of your reasons and examples. Why? So let's look at the structure for this type of essay. So we'll have our introduction and you'll put your position there. So if you said you strongly agree, you'll say, I strongly agree with this. Then you'll give your reasons and examples why you agree. That's the next paragraph, or might be more than one paragraph. In IELTS, try not to make your paragraphs too long. 8 lines is good. Okay, if your paragraph gets more than 8 lines, just break it up. Separate each reason into a different paragraph. Then it's good to at least consider the other side, like one reason on the other side, and then your conclusion. So can you be neutral? Can you say that, you think they both have, like you think both have merits? Yeah, you can do that if you want, but then you have to make sure you have an equal number of reasons on each side. So it's equal, right? Now let's look at a model. This is a higher level one. This is probably an 8.5 maybe. Okay, so here's the introduction. Everyone wants to live in comfort. Some people find independent houses more convenient. So you see they're sort of paraphrasing the topic again, while others prefer modern day apartments. I disagree. So here's the position, that living in a house is more advantageous than living in an apartment. Okay, so this person doesn't agree. Now let's see the reasons. To start with, we are moving towards a culture of nuclear families where most adults work, life is more stressful than ever, and people have less time on hand. Given these circumstances, it's much easier to manage an apartment. So that's the first reason, easier to manage. Can you see the example? For instance, most apartments have housekeeping facilities that take care of all the cleaning and maintenance, which we would have to manage ourselves. Okay, so the example should just support your reason. So this person said it's easier to manage, and their example is showing how it's easier to manage. Okay, so now there's another reason why they think apartments are better. So linking word, additionally, apartments are usually gated communities, so a lot more secure. Example, to exemplify, most apartments would have some sort of access cards for residents and stickers to identify their vehicles. Any visitor or guests will first have to go through the security, blah, blah, blah. Maybe that's a little bit long there, but furthermore, there's another reason with a linking word. Apartments have common facilities like recreational play area. Oh, there's a little mistake there. Play areas for kids, swimming pools, sports clubs, and so on. Yeah, so that's another reason and example. Now, at least now the person is considering the other side. However, living in an independent house does have its own advantages. So at least considering the other side, they're certainly more spacious and owners can freely utilize and modify the space based on their convenience. To conclude, so this is conclusion, apartments and houses have their set of pros and cons. However, I believe apartments satisfy the needs of our modern lifestyle better. Okay, so that's a higher level essay. But can you see how clear the structure is? Very clear examples and reasons. So they're agreeing, but then they consider the other side, just one reason. No, if someone's asking if you can just give one reason and example, no. Because they say give reasons and examples. So you have to give more than one. And usually in an opinion essay like this, you need to give 3 to support your position. Cite and as an example. You can say that. You can say to cite as an example. Yeah, you can. You could use that as long as you use it correctly. Yeah. So you don't have to give an example for every reason. Yeah, that's a good question. You could usually at least 1 or 2 for each side, but sometimes you just explain what you mean a little bit. You do need to explain your reason, but you don't always have to say, for example. You don't need to use statistics. Don't make up statistics. In a study from Harvard, they said 25%. The examiner knows that you made that up. It's not necessary. It's actually it's not a good idea. All right, so let's look at one more. Every year, thousands of students go overseas to study. Although many benefit from the experience, others go home disappointed. What are the benefits and drawbacks of studying in another country? Okay, so this is more of a general kind of a topic. Can you see it's a bit more straightforward? Now, that's our topic. Students going overseas to study. How many things do we have to do in this essay? What are our instructions? Yeah, we just have to do 2, right? Talk about the benefits and the drawbacks. This is not an opinion essay. This is a discussion essay. So let's think about the structure. So we'll have our introduction. We'll talk about the benefits. We'll think of reasons and examples, why. We'll have the drawbacks, reasons and examples, and we'll have our conclusion. Now, I want to talk about brainstorming. So I saw someone's question before. They're like, what if I can't think of the reasons? This is what you have to train yourself to do, to think of your reasons quickly. And I really recommend that on the scrap paper that they give you in the test, to write down your reasons. Just jot down very briefly in points. So we're going to brainstorm now. So our topic is studying in another country. What are the benefits? Yeah, so if you try with thinking up reasons, you just have to train yourself to do it. It takes time. Yeah. So, okay, here we go. You will learn about another culture, learn to be independent. Yep, good. What else? Another language, maybe? Yes. What else? What's another benefit? Yep. Broaden your network. Yes. Making links. All very good. Great reasons. Now, what are the drawbacks of studying overseas? Get global exposure. That's really nice. Nice vocabulary also. Homesick, expensive, culture shock. Yes, expensive. You get scrap paper in the test. Yes, I saw that question. High expense. Yes, all of those things. Yeah, so here are just some that I thought of, but all of yours are fine as well. It's very important to do this little brainstorming so that your reasons are very clear and separate, because a lot of people, they just try to write and think at the same time. They end up just repeating the same reason over and over, and it affects your score. Racism, yeah, that's right. That can be a drawback. So yeah, so I had benefits, exposure to other cultures, independence, networking, same as you all. Culture shock, discrimination, distractions. Yep, okay, good. Right, so then we need to think about our structure for this type of essay. Oh, we thought about our structure. Then we have to work out what we write in each part. So introduction. The quickest way is to just paraphrase the topic, rewrite it. Yeah, sometimes you have to give your position, but not in this essay, in an opinion essay. In the body, each paragraph needs a topic sentence that says what the paragraph is about. Then you give your reasons and examples. And your conclusion, you just really summarize everything into one paragraph. Remember, it's only 250 words. Yeah, you can write a bit more if you have time, but it's not a really long essay. Okay, so I see a whole lot of questions, which I will get to later because I want to get through the material. Yes, so your introduction, you just need to rewrite. The quickest way is to rewrite the topic. So every year, annually, thousands of students, a vast number of students, go overseas, venture abroad to study, to pursue their studies. Okay, so literally rewriting the topic, just like that. Another way to do it is to say a general statement about the topic. So these days, it often seems that almost every second new graduate attained their qualification abroad. And then this is a bit of a paraphrase. Many of these students find the study experience rewarding, but some are less satisfied. Okay, so your introduction, because you need to do it quickly, this is the fastest way to do it. Yeah, so the body, you'll have a topic sentence and the reasons and examples. So, and we will take the reasons and examples from your brainstorm that you just did. So remember there was exposure to new cultures. So that's our first reason, our first benefit, right? Study abroad offers students a number of benefits. My topic sentence, this is what this paragraph is about. Linking word for my first reason. Firstly, it facilitates exposure to new and diverse cultures. Students can immerse themselves in the lifestyle and traditions of their host country, and may also have the opportunity to discover the worldviews and cultural practices of fellow students from across the globe. So can you see here, I didn't say for example, but I just expanded on my reason. So you don't always need to say for example. In addition, another reason, being alone in an unfamiliar place and having to solve issues of day-to-day living can foster a strong sense of resilience and independence. For example, negotiating rent, transport, and food will teach a young person valuable life skills. So you see that the example is just brief and it just supports my reason, being independent. Okay. Then we consider the other side. Conversely, can be several drawbacks, right? There's my topic sentence. That's what this paragraph's about, several drawbacks. One of these can be a confronting sense of culture shock that arises if a student finds themselves in a place with very different values. For example, so here's the example, if a young person has grown up in a relatively conservative or rural environment, studying in a liberal cosmopolitan city may be extremely jarring and negatively impact their ability to study. And further to this is a second drawback. Dynamic environment in a foreign country can might lead to a range of distractions. Okay, then expanding on the reason, on the point. Then the conclusion, we just kind of summarize everything in one paragraph. In conclusion, opting to complete tertiary studies abroad can offer increased exposure, opportunities to develop independence, but can't be denied that overseas study leads to culture shock and many distractions. Each person needs to consider their own temperament. So just summarizing all the points in one paragraph. Yeah, don't put your opinion unless they ask you your opinion. But this essay, they didn't say, you know, I think, what do you think? So don't do it. Just follow the instructions. If you want to, and you need more words for your conclusion, you can point to what might happen in the future. You can say, in future, I believe even more students may study overseas. But unless they ask you for your opinion, don't put your opinion. You will lose marks. In a discussion essay, is it crucial to have an equal number of drawbacks and benefits? Yeah, I think it is important because they didn't say, do you think there are more drawbacks? They said, talk about drawbacks and benefits. So it's better to have an equal number. Okay, good. So we've talked a lot about the structure, cohesion and coherence, and also analyzing the topic and answering the question and having good reasons and examples. But we can't forget the vocab and the grammar, right? So vocab, remember, it's just spelling. And also it's more formal in the essay. We don't want words like hubby, baby, and all that. We want more formal language and more sophisticated words if you can. Yeah, and collocations. So these are words that sound nice together in English. If we come back and look at that, remember this one that was band 7? There's some nice vocab here. Not enough to lift it to band 8. You'd need like more of it because there are quite a lot of simple words too, and some words are repeated over and over. But there is some nice collocation. So words that go together. So tourist attraction, that sounds nice in English, correct? Educational importance, oh, nice in English. Rare species, sounds good. Alternative ways, natural habitat. All these words sound good in English together. And then there are a few more unusual words here, aren't there? Cruel, precious, endangered. Yeah, these are a bit more unusual words. So this lifts it up to the 7. Yeah, so that's it's important with your vocab. If you want a 7 or more, you need these more unusual words. The other problem with this essay, why it didn't get up to an 8, is the spelling. There are quite a lot of spelling mistakes here. If you read it carefully, you'll spot them. Yeah, there's one in the second line even. I don't know if you can see. So if you have spelling mistakes like this, quite a few of them, you can't get up to an 8. Yeah. All right, so that's the vocab. And then we also have to think about our grammar. So remember, the grammar is the complex structures. So, you know, we could say global warming is a phenomenon. It is caused by increased carbon emissions. That's fine, totally fine. But if we combine it, global warming is a phenomenon caused by increased carbon emissions, this is a more complex sentence and it sounds more impressive. So we want to combine. How? Like I said before, using things like although, however, whereas, while, Yeah, all of those. However, despite, in spite of, even though, all of those. And if sentences are good too. Yes, and so we're also looking at being accurate with the grammar. So coming back to this band 7, what I suggest you do, so if maybe you have very good grammar, so that's fine, you don't have to worry. But if you know that your grammar is not very good, what I recommend you do is write an essay, give it to someone who has really good grammar, get them to correct it and point out your mistakes. Then you'll start to learn your habits. And then you can train yourself to look for those common errors that you make and start to fix them. So this essay has some common grammar mistakes. Yeah, just because of time, I'll get you to pick them out, but I will point them out to you. So one common mistake is this: articles. In English, it's very confusing, and the, that people get confused. If there's only one in the whole world, then we use the, so all over the world. But whenever it's a singular noun, we usually need a or the. So if it's one of many, we would use a. If it's something very specific, we'll use the. Yeah, so for the city, get a chance, like that specific Chinese panda or the Indian tiger. This is cruel for the animal. In a zoo, one of many zoos. Yeah, so be really careful with a and the. If you have run out of time to edit, yeah, if you're doing paper-based, you can just put a line through something that's wrong and correct it. It's totally fine, no problem. Yeah. Okay, I see quite a few questions, but I'll come to them. I just want to get through this part and then I'll answer the questions. So another common mistake are prepositions. So these are those little words in, on, at, to, for. So wild animals in their country, not at their country. So in a country and at a place. So at the doctor, for example. Non-plurals, yeah? So we frequently see news stories, not just one story. So this is a common mistake. And this also subject-verb agreement, because they are not. Plural, they are not. So these are all common mistakes that people make. Yeah, so just some last tips. If you're doing paper-based, we haven't talked so much about that. You can do a plan on your task sheet. You can underline things and make notes. Yeah, and when you actually write on your answer sheet, you don't have to squish it all onto one page. You can ask for another sheet if you need more paper. But you don't have time to write a rough one and then rewrite it. You can make your notes like a plan. Remember our brainstorm and a rough the structure, but you don't have time to write a rough copy. Remember not to copy the topic, to paraphrase. So the reasons that you came up with just now were very good. They were very clear and specific. Don't make them too vague and don't make them too detailed either. And you don't want to tell stories. You can give examples from your life, but the examples just have to support your reason. Don't tell a long personal story because it's not that kind of essay. So when you're just to remember that you need to answer, so if it says benefits and drawbacks, you have to talk about both of them. Yeah, if it says, you know, why don't people follow the news? What can you suggest? You have to do both bits. You must have paragraphs. So usually 4 to 6 paragraphs, very clear what each paragraph is about. You must have your linkers. Try to use more unusual vocab and correct spelling, complex sentences, and don't forget full stops, capital letters. Yeah. Okay, so there's quite a lot to do in the essay, but you know, remember, it's not a really long essay, just a short essay. Yeah. So yes, so just to sum up, so task 2 is worth 66%. So really, we want to get task 1 done quickly and move on to the essay. So really analyze the topic like we've been doing. And if it's an opinion essay, get your position. Remember to brainstorm, think about your structure, think about your paragraphs. What's each paragraph about? You want a range of vocab and grammar. Yeah, so make sure you stay on the topic. So spend some time really understanding what you're supposed to do. You need to use your linking words. If you run out of time, don't put bullets or notes. You must write in full sentences, otherwise you lose marks. And try to leave a couple of minutes to look for your common mistakes and spot them. Okay, now remember I mentioned the resources. So when you do your exam with IDP, you can access this IELTS Essentials. There, oh, thank you for the poll too. I forgot about that. Okay, yeah, let's just review what we just talked about with task 2. And while you're doing that, so IELTS Essentials has many kinds of resources to support you. Yeah, so free practice tests, tips, they have a blog, they have videos. So once you sign up to do your test with IDP, you access all these IELTS Essentials. Also visit the IDP website. There are lots of good resources there as well. Okay, yeah, so we're going to move on to questions, and I will look at your questions too in a minute. Let's just look at this poll. I'll just end the poll. So you have to write exactly 250. No, you can, that's a minimum. Of course you can write more. Many people can write up to 300, and that's fine as long as you can do it within the time. Should you count the words? So paper-based, computer delivered, you have a word count, which is good. Paper-based, there's no word count. But please do not count words. Work out how many words you do on one line, and work out how many lines you need to do. Yeah, don't waste time counting words. And should you use, you can write ideas in point form? No, no notes, no points. You just have to finish if you run out of time. Okay, great. So I do see quite a few questions. So let me have a look. I might just stop the share. Let me have a look at some of the questions. Do you think grammar checking applications like Grammarly can be helpful? Yeah, I mean, I think so. As if you use it proactively and you look at what Grammarly suggests and work out why. Yeah, I think that might be helpful. Why not? For sure. Do I revise at the time each? Oh, I don't understand that question. Sorry. For computer-based, would it hurt our score if there are extra spaces between words? Oh no, I think that's fine. That's okay. If they ask for your opinion, can you use the opinion as a conclusion? Yes, you can. If you have enough words, you can have your opinion and your reasons for your opinion. That can be your conclusion. Yes. Oh, yes, maps. Okay, task 1, academic. Sometimes you have a map. Now, when you get a map, don't panic. Usually there's like before and after, past and present, or past and future. Your job is to look at which things are different and which things are the same on the map. You have to mention everything on the map, but work out what has changed and then group things. Like, you know, if it's a building, like have the windows changed, has the roof changed, and that kind of thing. So usually with map, it's like 2 different times. Yeah, but other than that, it's all the same. You will have an introduction, your overview, and then you describe in detail everything that's changed. Tenses in the writing test. The tenses do matter. Yeah, so if you're talking about past, you have to use past tense. If you're talking about facts, then you use present. If you're talking about future, you use future. How to improve paraphrasing sentences. I think it's good to look at models. That's one way, but I think you just have to look at essay topics and practice rewriting them, changing the words. For that, you'll have to build up your vocab. And to do that, you have to read. You can also look online on Google for vocab, IELTS vocabulary building exercises, something like that. There are so many materials out there. Actually, we're very lucky. Yeah, okay.
I guess we can proceed to the live Q&A
Sure.
from our participants. If you want to ask your questions directly to our IELTS expert, Miss Jackie, kindly raise your hand and we will allow you to talk and raise your questions. Anyone? Okay, so our first
Sorry, if I missed your question in the chat, you can ask it live now.
Yeah. feel free to raise your hand, and at least you can talk directly to our IELTS expert. And of course, you can also practice your speaking for your speaking test. Okay, so our first question will be coming from Walan Harianto. Hi, Walan.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes, we
Loud
can
Okay.
hear
and
you.
clear.
I think you missed my question on the chat.
Okay,
So I
sure,
just want to
sorry.
ask away. Yeah.
They were like doing
I
that
was
stuff.
wondering why so many students, especially from Indonesia, cannot get above a band score 6. Like, what is it really the problem? I mean, what are the tips, tricks, or what are the secrets, or maybe your suggestion, yeah, to get that threshold, to get above band score 6?
This is for the writing?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
especially for
really,
the writing, because
yeah, it's
other
really,
sections are okay.
yeah. So a band 6 means competent. Band 6 is not a bad score at all, but what it means, I mean, I know that a lot of universities will need higher than that, like they might need a 6.5. So it's very hard to say without looking at the writing. But often people have trouble with the grammar. That often pulls people down. They don't have enough accuracy and complexity to get the 7. Sometimes sometimes people, they don't answer the question. It's their reasons and examples are not differentiated enough. They're a bit too general, or they're a bit repetitive. I mean, often people run out of time too, so they don't have enough. They don't write enough. Yeah, it's really hard to say. That's why, as I was saying, to get a 7 for the writing, it takes some time. And I think for people who keep trying the test and can't get the score for writing, I really suggest you work with the tutor. On the IDP website, there are actually links to different, that have affiliated training organizations. So if you just find you can't get the score, you need to work with someone to work out where you're going wrong. Yeah.
Hi, Walan. Is your
Yeah.
answer been answered?
Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
Thank you.
So I know
Okay,
it's
thank you.
frustrating, and I know it's tough. I mean, the writing is, that's why we have this session, because the writing is, yeah, it's not easy to get a 7.
Okay, thank you very much, Walan. Next, our next question will be coming from Mohammed Nugroho. Hi, Mohammed.
Hello, can you hear me right?
Yes,
Yes, we can
hi.
hear you.
Hello.
Hi, hello. I'm from Indonesia, like Wolan. So I have taken IELTS test twice, and both result in 7.5. But
Oh, that's great.
thank you very much. But the writing is kind of both resulted in 6.5. My tutor actually told me before the test that my writing was fine, and when I showed them the result, they kind of suggested me to have it revised, rechecked, just to make sure that it was like the right score. Was it possible though? Is it possible?
Yes, of course. If you feel that you really, you feel you did a pretty good job and you think that it was marked too hard, you have to pay for it though. That's the only thing. You can pay for it to be remarked. And then if the senior examiner who remarks it feels that it's higher, then you get the higher score.
Oh, I see. So it's kind of a little bit gambling, right? So I have
I
to
mean, you won't lose. You won't. I mean, if they just think it's lower, you won't get a lower score.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay. So okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you very much, Mohammed, for your question. Next, we have another question from Ngan Bui. Oh, sorry. I think, yeah. Go ahead, Ngan.
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hi. How are you?
Hi, thank you. So actually, I have a question that you just say before that we can ask for the trainer to help in the writing from the IDP. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I was just having a quick look on the, I have the link for the Singapore website, but you'll need to look for your, where you
Yeah,
are.
I'm from Vietnam.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm not sure. So I'm just sharing the Singapore one. Oops, there's a typo there though. Yeah, so you might want to do the same kind of, if you go to the IDP website for Vietnam, and they may have affiliated courses there. Yeah. So hopefully that will help.
Yeah, they do have some courses, but I think I don't see any trainer to help in the writing, for example, like that.
So that's what I meant by the course. So if you do a course with a trainer, like with a not just an online course. Yeah. I mean, the other thing you can do is, so if you have a look at your IDP website for Vietnam, see if you can find something there. If not, I mean, there are many IELTS trainers and tutors everywhere. So you can have a look online as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Nan, for your question. Next, another question will be coming from Ara Liza Roldan. Hi, Ara.
Hello.
Hi, good evening from the Philippines.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah. Hi, Jackie. I just want to thank you for this session. It's very helpful.
Oh, good.
I do understand that some of the things that we need to improve really will be based on practice. However, and I also understand that there could be a wide range of questions that can be asked during the writing exam. Just in case, an unfortunate event that I have very few ideas about the topic, do you have any suggestions on how we can expand our answers, even though we have very limited ideas or things to talk about?
So that's a great question, and it's something I forgot to talk about, so thank you. So in IELTS, the topics come up over and over again. The details of the topic may be different, but the general topics are often the same, and they're similar to the ones that they have in part 3 of the speaking. So what I suggest you do is really just become aware of those topics, and the easiest way to do that is just follow the news, like daily, the BBC, get the BBC app, and you don't have to be a specialist. The other part of so you don't get stumped is look at a lot of different questions and train yourself to just brainstorm. You don't even have to write the essay always. Just think of the reasons. Train yourself to think of reasons quickly. When I started teaching IELTS, I became good at this. I wasn't so good at it before myself. You just train yourself to think, and of course it takes practice. So the common topics that come up in the essay, we saw some of them tonight. So there's things like education, there are transport, health, what else? Environment, sports, things like animals. What else am I not thinking of? Yeah, so there are these main topics, and you don't have to be a specialist. Yeah, you just have to have opinions about things. And so if you're someone who doesn't have any opinions about things, this is something that you have to develop. Yeah, and part of having opinions is starting to follow what's going on, like follow the news, and maybe do that on your commute so that you're aware of what's going on in the world. But you'll see that the topics come up over and over again. Yeah, so the topics are not usually so specific. Government, usually it's not about government. It won't be about politics and government. Culture, that's another thing that'll come up. Urbanization, town and country. Environment, I think I mentioned that. Maybe like aging population. Often education comes up. Technology, yes, technology, that's right. Yeah. And it does really help to look at a lot of different topics. So if you go to the There are many websites out there with the recent topics that have come up. So you can see what the topics are. And you'll see that after a while, they keep getting repeated. I mean, slightly different, but you know. And the official IELTS website, that also is really helpful for like showing you the different kinds of topics. Yeah, but that's a great question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jackie. Tips are very helpful.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Ara. Our next question will be coming from Sharilyn Matt. Hi, Miss Sharilyn.
Hi. I'm sorry if I'm not saying this correctly, but I just think this way when it comes to any kind of English test or anything of the sort. Do you think, specifically brought up earlier, that being of dialect, is that going to be, at least in some way, have an effect on a test like this? Because again, I'm just looking into it from an angle of wanting to know more about it. Because I know some tests, if I'm being honest, they make English a lot harder than it can be. Well, seem as it can be. For example, there are some sentences that sound very, very bad, but are grammatically correct. Sorry if that didn't make any sense.
No, I think I know what you're saying. So, but I think with IELTS, it's not like, okay, so maybe some kinds of academic writing, like for university or university English tests or essays that you write have to be written in this very formal, very complex kind of way. You don't have to write like that in the IELTS essay. I mean, it is more formal writing, but the models that I showed you, that type of writing is fine. It's not so formal, and you can write using I. It doesn't have to be like passive. And the more important thing is that you always think about the 4 things that the examiner is looking at. Answering the question, the structure, the grammar, and the vocab, and that it's very clear. Being really clear is really important for IELTS. Yeah. But you don't have to be like, you don't have to write in a very pompous, old-fashioned way. No, not at all. Yeah.
Thank you. That very much helped.
Okay, good.
May I ask one more question? I'm sorry if I can't.
You may proceed.
I just wanted to see, this kind of pertains to what someone else brought up, and that being, what if there is a chance that you're getting a lower grade specifically because someone has, again, I do not mean to be rude or anything like that, racist undertones? Because I've seen that kind of stuff when it comes to specifically, again, English tests and stuff like that.
Okay,
And
so yeah,
sorry.
So that's a good question as well. So of course that's a concern, but okay, so there are many checks and balances with IELTS. So you are not marked on your opinion. Like you may have a particular opinion and the examiner may not agree with you, but that's not how they'll mark you. They're just marking you on your language, on those 4 areas. And the examiners, the writing examiners, they are monitored continuously to make sure that they are marking fairly. So they're checked all the time. And yeah, so that's already a lot of checks and balances. And they're trained that they don't mark according to whether they agree with what you're saying or not. And then the other thing is, again, like I said before, if you really think it's been unfairly marked, you can have it marked again.
Okay,
So
thank you very much, Charlene. We will be accepting 3 remaining questions from our live QA. The first one will be coming from Zalika Putri. Hi, Zalika.
Hi, can you hear my voice clearly?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, so yeah, my question is, if I'm not mistaken, our speaker mentioned about that if we write like the text, no need to write the example really personal, but I just a little bit confused about that. I'm still struggling to differentiate it. Like, would you mind to explain it once more about the really personal?
Sure. Yeah, great question. Okay, so when you give an example, they say in the instructions, you can give examples from your life, from your experience, or from what you know. So you could give an example like, you know, about studying overseas. You could say, well, when I studied overseas, I learned to be independent because I had to, you know, manage my finances and pay bills and, you know, buy food. That's fine. That would be a really good example. But what I'm saying is don't tell a long story about your time. Like, when I was overseas, first of all, I flew into this airport and then I went here and it was quite hard to find a flat and blah, 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 blah. Don't tell a long story. Do you know what I mean? As your example. It's not a narrative essay. So your example from your life is fine, but it just needs to support your reason. Yeah, so keep your example quite brief. That's my point. But your example can be from your life and your experience.
Okay, thank
Does that
you
make
very
sense?
much. Thank you, Salika, for your question. Our last two. First will be coming from Nguyen Kwang. Hi, Nguyen.
You can hear me, right?
Yes,
Yes,
hi,
we can hear you.
hi.
Yeah. I heard that in order to get some point from a 7 point in writing, we should include some general ideas, just general in the introduction. It is right.
General ideas. So when you do your introduction, I think there are basically two ways to do it. I mean, the thing about IELTS is you can do it anyway, but I'm just giving you these tips because I think they're the easier way to do it. So one way, probably the easiest way to do the introduction is just rewrite the topic using different words. Yeah, that's one way. But that way, it probably won't give you such a high score. Like if you're needing an 8 or higher. So, or like a 7.5. So another way to do the introduction is to say a general statement about the topic rather than just rewrite the topic. So, you know, with the one about living in a house or a flat, you know, you could say, you know, you could say something general about, you know, in many countries, there's an ongoing debate about which is better, house or flat, something like that, rather than just literally rewrite the topic. Yeah, but you can paraphrase the topic if you prefer. It's up to you. You just need a nice, clear introduction to introduce what the essay is about. That's what the introduction's for.
Okay, thank you very much
Sure.
again for your question. And our last question from the live Q&A will be coming from my namesake, Patrick. Hi, Patrick.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Patrick. Yes. Hi.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I have one question for the writing. Okay, so I've learned that there's some patterns to writing, and maybe in cram school or most tutor here in Thailand, that is something to follow as this pie chart illustrate that, or this bar chart illustrate that. My question is, can I write both tasks, task 1 and task 2, free-formingly as long as I answer all the needed point as you explained to us today?
Sorry, you can answer, what is free form? What do you mean? You don't copy the template? Is that what you mean?
Yes, like how can I say? Like I don't need to follow any patterns. Like as long as I can say that what is all about the tables or diagrams in part 1 and in task 2, as long as I can answer all the question as both view opinions, I don't need to follow any patterns.
That's true. That's true. But you do need to make sure, because the reason I talk about all these things, like in task 1 academic, you need the overview, you need an introduction, and you need to describe then the data, you need to describe in detail and compare. You must do that. So how you do that is up to you. Yeah, you can structure it in a different way if you want to, but you must have those elements or you can't get a good score. And then with the essay, yeah, whatever the instructions are, you must answer those questions. But how you do it, how you structure it, as long as it's clear, then it's up to you. Yeah, you don't have to follow exactly, a particular template. And often people who have very, very high level, they will do it their own way, but they do it in a very good way. Yeah.
So got it. So yeah.
So we present all these models and templates for people who are not so comfortable and confident. Yeah, but if you have another way and you're covering all the things that they require, of course, feel free.
So it's not exactly some words, but just only follow the pattern you told today, but not exactly these particular word or something like that, right?
No, in fact, that's right.
Yeah, got it.
If yours is more original, then that's better because the examiners see a lot of this table illustrates, this table illustrates.
Yeah, I got it all. Thank you very much.
Okay, I guess this is the end of our live Q&A for all those questions. Thank you very much for asking that to our IELTS expert, Miss Jackie. For my last question, Miss Jackie, what should I do the night before the IELTS test?
Thanks, Patrick. I think you should just relax, really. Yeah, try not to have a late night. I don't think you need to revise on the night before. Do something, some bit of self-care. So, just relax, have a nice chamomile tea, make sure you get a good night's sleep if you can. Yeah, and yeah, because I think it's like staying up all night to cram. I don't think that's a good idea. Yeah, try to do all your work beforehand. That's what I'd advise you to do. That's a great question. Yeah, and I just want to thank everybody for their wonderful questions and all your interaction this evening. It's great. It's so nice to be connected with you virtually. And of course, to thank the great, wonderful team, Lilette, Patrick, and Yanis. Thank you so much.
Okay, that is all for tonight. We hope that we were able to answer all your queries, but if not, please message us directly and we will get back to you with a response. Again, thank you very much for tuning in and a huge thank you to our IELTS expert, Ms. Jackie, for walking us through today's webinar and answering your questions. So here in the Philippines, have a great good night to all of you. Welcome and goodbye.
Bye.